Hi, I'm Bob Canote, and on this episode of the Camp Chaos Chronicles, we're going to hang a Tremec TKX transmission off of this bell housing we fabricated for this Jaguar V12. How hard can it be? Dang it. So what are we going to have to do here? Well, one thing that I found out earlier today was something that I was kind of worried about. Are we going to have clearance between the exhaust system and this bell housing, because it isn't actually the traditional bell housing rounded shape. And I've got the catalytic converters on here, and guess what? They clear. I mean, it's about an inch clearance in between there, but that's plenty. The transmission hangs off the back here, and these pipes actually follow parallel to the frame rails from this point on back. So we're not going to have any sort of clearance issue between the transmission and the exhaust, which is great. As far as clearance between here and the transmission tunnel, we put this bevel on here in order to reduce the possibility that that's going to happen. I'm not even sure that we needed to do that, just sort of eyeballing things under there. My only concern is the sides right here. Are they going to clear? But from my preliminary measurements, I think we're going to be okay. So what we got to do at this point is to take care of this hole right here, because obviously that bearing retainer isn't going to go in there. So let's get this thing off and let's get started. Our first step is to open up this hole that you saw earlier to a diameter that's much closer to the finished dimension that it needs to be. Obviously, this is a lot bigger than that small one. It would take forever to bore that out. So we're going to hole saw it out to 4.5 inches. It needs to go out to 4.820, I believe it is. So we still got a fair amount of boring to do, but we've centered the spindle or the quill on the opening, and we're just going to remove a lot of material in one go here with this hole saw. Hole saws are wonderful things. We are out to within 40 thousandths of the diameter of the front bearing retainer on the transmission. And so that gives us 40 thousandths of an inch. That hole cannot be more than 40 thousandths of an inch out around. I really don't think it's going to be. But, you know, if it's bigger than that, then it's going to get ugly. You know, we got to make it small again, whether we're welding that up or... you know, it's 40 thousandths is a lot, which means that if it's off 40 thousandths that way, if this is 0 and that's 40 thousandths, then we move it this way 20 thousandths. And each side would be 20 thousandths on the other side of 0, if that makes sense. Let's take a look at the setup that we're going to use to determine whether that hole is where it ought to be or not. First of all, we've got this generic Jaguar 5.3 liter V12 that's been laying around the shop for, well, 15 years now. It's an overhaul that I began in the late 2000, well, actually 2005, 2006. And actually, it was before I had any heat in my shop. I was building this engine in my kitchen, believe it or not, back in the day, and just never got around to finishing it. I ought to get this thing on the stand this year just to bring closure to that project. Down here, we've got a dial indicator on a magnetic base. We're going to place this in the hole that we milled in the previous clip, and this plunger right here will ride around on the inside of that hole and tell us how close it is to being concentric to the crankshaft. Remember, that hole back here that the transmission fits in, that's got to be within 5/1000ths of an inch concentric with the center line of the crankshaft. Otherwise, the transmission is going to be, the front bearing is going to be destroyed. And what we got is a magnetic base here. And if you're going to work on anything mechanical, you really need to have something like this, a dial indicator setup to determine things like bearing play, front wheel bearing play, rear wheel bearing play. You're going to see this used extensively throughout this forthcoming series on rebuilding the rear hub carriers on the Jaguar IRS unit. You know, this is what we're going to use to give us the information that we need to have here. So let's put it to work. In order to figure out what we've actually got here, I've put white masking tape over this so that you can actually see what I'm doing, a little better contrast than this dark metal. And what I've done is I've broken up the circumference of the hole to 90-degree increments first of all, and then broke each one of those down into 3 30-degree parts. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to take this dial indicator, which has the plunger on it, if you want to call it that, oriented as close to the center of the hole as possible, and we're going to take and rotate the engine around, and every 30 degrees we're going to see what the dial indicator reads. Right now we're on 0. Now the issue is, if this needle moves from 0, or we can actually look at it as 0.100, to 90,000 to 80, 70, and so forth, that means that the hole is getting further this way. If it goes the other way from 0 to 10, 20, 30, that means the hole is moving this way. And if as we rotate this, it goes one way and then stops and goes the other, where it stops and goes the other direction, that's our new 0. So in this case, if it turns out that it goes from 0 to 10 to 20 to 10 to 0, that means the hole is too far this way. If it moves one direction and then turns around and goes the other direction, that means that the hole is off at an angle like this. So this is going to be kind of an important operation. I'm going to have my able assistant Bill turn the crankshaft while I record readings on the tape off of the dial indicator. So right now we're looking at 0.000. Okay, let's go to the first 30-degree mark. A little more, just a touch. There. Wow. Are we actually? Yeah, we're still at 0. Okay, another 30. A little more, just a touch. Perfect. We are at 4 thousandths. This is looking pretty good so far. Okay, another 30. Perfect. 9 thousandths. Okay, another 30. Perfect. We are at 14 thousandths. 0.014. Next. A little more. Actually, quite a bit more. More. A little more. Back just a touch. Okay, we are at 1021. Okay, next. Perfect. 1026. Okay, next. Back. A little more. A little more. Perfect. 1026. 23 thousandths. Next. Back a little. A little more. Perfect. 19 thousandths. Next. A little more. A little more. Just a touch. Perfect. 11 thousandths. One more. A little more. A little more. Perfect. 4 thousandths. And then let's see if we can come back to 0 here. One more. Okay. Back just a touch. Yeah, we're within 1,000th. We're calling that good. All right, thank you. So let's analyze what we've got here. This is our original 0, and I set the dial indicator to 0.000 and started turning it counterclockwise. And at the first roughly 30-degree increment, we still got 0.000 and so forth, so on, 4,000th, 9, 14, 21. We get to the point 180 degrees out from where we started, and it's at 26 thousandths, which means that the hole is this way 13 thousandths of an inch too much. Okay, if we were to move it this way 13 thousandths, we would be right on center. Okay, but we go to the next one, it's 26 thousandths. Just like it's 0 thousandths here at the first 30-degree measurement, the first one after 180 is also 26, just like 180. So we go around and we get back to 0 here. Okay, so what this tells me is that the hole is offset not on a direct line from side to side, left to right. It's canted just a little bit this way. And what I did is I took the dial indicator and went in between these two 0 thousandths graduations, and I found that it was still 0. Went over here and I found the same thing. Between 180 and the first 30 degree, that'd be 210 degrees, okay, which is irrelevant. It's still 26 thousandths. So what I've done is I've drawn this red line here to indicate that when I put this on the table of the mill in order to finish this hole up, I'm going to turn it so that this red line right here is parallel to the table on the mill. Another thing is if we go directly across the center line, or as close as I could eyeball it, we find that this is 14 thousandths here. And over on this side, this is 19, this is 11. And if we interpolate directly in between here, I mean, we're looking at 8 thousandths, that's 4. We're going to call it 5. So there'd be 4 thousandths here, roughly. I mean, we're eyeballing this. So we would be at 14 thousandths. Oh, 15,000. 15 thousandths. So we're roughly 1,000th degree off this way. So we're actually pretty good. 4 thousandths, 4 thousandths, 9 thousandths, 11 thousandths. So we're good this way. I'm not going to mess with anything there. I could, if I wanted to, move it 1,000th, I could. But remember, we got a 5 thousandths of an inch range that this center line of this hole must fall within. So what I got to do here, once I get it set up, so this is parallel to the table on the vertical milling machine, is I'm going to move, once I get this centered on the quill, or as you may know it as the spindle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift it 13 thousandths to the left, which means it'll move this hole. So this would read 13 thousandths now, and this would read 13 thousandths on the other side of 0, our original 0.000. Makes sense to me. That's my story, and that's what I'm going with. are. This bore has been taken out to the diameter that I need for the front bearing retainer on the transmission. As you can see, everything falls between zero, actually zero here because this eventually turned into 1 the second time around, 0 to 2,500. We're within the 5,000ths window that we need to be at. Now we can move on. There it is. Well, it's not all complete yet. What has been done is we've gotten that bore in the back of the bell housing centered and sized properly for the transmission. And I used a 1/2-inch transfer punch to locate the holes. After I had leveled, ran a smart level, a digital level across the intake manifolds and across the surface right here to make sure that the transmission was level with the engine. I made that mistake on my track car. Shifter's a little offset toward me, which actually works out fine in that situation. But this thing has to be lined up along the center line of the vehicle, which it appears that it is. So that's all bolted up. Everything with the bell housing, well, there are a couple other things we've got to do here. We've got a hydraulic throw-out bearing on the inside here. We're going to have to drill a couple of holes and find some grommets for the lines to come out, the hydraulic lines to go up to the clutch master cylinder. And thinking about having some sort of a vent set up in it to allow air to get at the clutch without allowing a lot of foreign material to get in. I don't know, maybe up here. Gonna have to give that some thought. One other thing we have to do is we have to come up with a throw-out bearing, which this happens to be in the end of the crankshaft on this engine, and it's the right size. At some point, I had to have been considering putting a manual transmission behind this engine. Mission accomplished. Well, there it is. Looks like it's pretty much ready to go, but as I said, there's a few things to do yet before we can put it in the car. Now, if you like these videos, like, subscribe, share, and maybe leave a comment down below so that we know what we can do to do what we do better. And we'll see you the next time on the Camp Chaos Chronicles.